Hi, Dr. Dravon James. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Me too. I'm delighted to talk to you today. I always like to give my guests the opportunity to introduce themselves to the listening audience in their own words, and you have a very rich past and history and present. So, why don't you tell the listening audience a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Oh, I'd be happy to. So, obviously, I'm Dr. Dravon James, and I am the founder of Everyday Peace. What does that mean? Right? I obviously didn't invent Everyday Peace, but I coach people on how to use everything that shows up in their life, the wanted and the unwanted. Another way of saying that is the good and the bad. Everything that shows up in your life, the things you want and the things that you don't want, is a stepping stone to consciously create the life that you want. Right. And our
Mm,
philosophy is pieces, nothing missing, nothing broken, totality is everything that shows up. So we use everything like gumbo, if you will, right? So I am a
mm.
transformational coach in a word or two. That's what I do currently. So I don't know.
Beautiful.
Is that
Beautiful.
clear?
Yeah, I'm excited to unpack a lot of that work with you and also your book that you have that we'll talk about as well. And the second question, I'm always curious about everyone's life journey through spirituality and religion. And, we, most of us, if we live in the Western world, get plunked into some version of Christianity, and then we either grow away from it or grow into it. So, what was your early life story? And then what are you centering yourself in spiritually or religious wise these days?
Oh, thank you for this story. I love telling my beginning because it honors my mom. And you're right, most of us grew up with some form of Christianity. I'm no different than that. I grew up going to two churches my entire life. And I used to think that I was the most unlucky kid in the world. I went to church on Saturday all day on Saturday to what we now call, well, we called it then to New Thought Church, so metaphysical
Mm.
teachings, right? I did that on Saturdays. And then on Sundays, I went to a Pentecostal church, also known as Holiness
Oh,
Church
wow.
on Sundays, all day long, right? And so I like to tell people that my mom would always say to us, do not mention to the church on Saturday that you go to a Pentecostal church on Sunday. And then on Sunday, she would say, do not mention to the Pentecostal people that you go to a metaphysical church on Saturday. And so, of course, we didn't. But as I sat there and I grew up in this my whole life hearing these two messages, what they thought was so different,
Hmm.
I saw so much similarity in. And so much of my life's journey, of course, you go through your phases. I went to college. I barely went to church at all, but I still had those beliefs in me. I became a young adult. I went back to a Pentecostal church or not Pentecostal, but more non-denominational
Hmm.
churches. But the central theme, if you get, for me anyway, I found that once I drilled away from all of the customs and the rituals and all that, the message was the
Hmm.
same. And I basically can worship anywhere, really. But I do still continue that practice. I go to a non denominational church, nothing against Pentecostal. I just go to a non-denominational church
Yeah.
and then I go and then I practice. I also go to Unity Church, which is more of a new thought type of church as well. I still do
Mm,
that. Imagine that.
beautiful. I love that. That's such an interesting story. And what did your mom ever say why she wanted to go to those two different churches? Like, what was her reasoning about that?
Well, my mother was always a seeker of knowledge, right? And she
Mm,
grew up Pentecostal, strong Pentecostal church. Her uncle, my great uncle, founded what is now a mega church. And so she had that background, but she always grew up knowing that there was maybe something beyond the words that were just the literal meaning of the
mm,
words, right? Right. And
right.
just the literal meaning of the words. Not that those words are impactful and very, very useful, but she was
Hmm.
always searching for the meaning beyond that. The story,
Right.
if we
Like
say
what
that
they were
that's just
pointing to.
right. Right, that's allegory. Then there's meaning even beyond the allegory. So that's what she was always
Absolutely.
looking for and trying to understand herself, her inner workings, right? That God
Hmm.
presence within herself. And so she instilled that sort of seeking of knowledge of oneself in her children as well.
I love
Trying to
that.
find,
That's,
looking for God within ourselves. I said that's the best way to say it.
hmm.
Finding, connecting to the God within ourselves.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. So I really wanted to talk to you because a proponent of something that I find incredibly useful in my life. I don't think I'd be here if I hadn't have cultivated my own self-awareness. You're somebody who really is diving deep into self-awareness and how it can change us, how it can make us better leaders, how it can allow us to integrate our past and all of these things. And so I thought where we would start out as like a baseline for your work is just number one, discuss how you define self-awareness, you know, in your own terms, and then your perception of how you think people are having self-awareness, you know, as a spectrum as we, because you know we aren't really born with self-awareness. It sort of grows over time and then there's shades of it. So for you, what that perception is, and but first how you define it and what you're doing in that space.
Yeah, thank you for that. So I like to use Socrates when I talk about self-awareness, right? Because he's well
Mm-hmm.
respected. But Socrates says, to know thyself is the beginning of wisdom, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I love, I didn't have that definition when I started off on this journey many, many years ago of self-awareness that was sparked by my mom. But I love that because to know thyself is the beginning of wisdom,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then if we talk about religion, and it says, if a man lack wisdom, let him ask, right? So wisdom being that thing that, could you imagine if we were just wise, what would we want for? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Is there any other thing more valuable than wisdom? Right? If we lack anything and we were wise on how to obtain it, you don't need to give it to us, right? We'll just go obtain it, right? It's the difference between giving someone a fish and teaching them to fish, right? Is that
Correct.
once I know how to tap into this wisdom that's within me, then the world becomes my oyster. So that's really how I approach wisdom. It is the answer for so much of for which we want to obtain and know about the world even. And so as I
Mm-hmm.
as I coach and as I coach others and constantly coach myself and participate in coaching for myself, what I realize is that we are not as self-aware as we would like to believe that we are.
Yeah.
And you said something earlier that we don't come into the world self-aware, but I think babies do come in the world self-aware.
Okay.
They just this is what I want in this moment, right? Maybe they don't
Mm.
verbalize it, but this is what I want in this moment. This is what I need in this moment, and absolutely nothing else will do, right? That's the crying, the tantrums of this, right? And so in our wisdom, our lack thereof, or our love, or teaching them to conform to the world, we sort of push them away from being so turned inward to having them
Mm-hmm.
judge their self by the world around them. Do you see anybody
Right.
else doing that, Johnny? Then maybe you should sit down, right? Does this look like the play? I'm a parent of two, a 23-year-old and a 20-year-old
Yeah.
year old. Sometimes I cringe at the things that I said as a parent, you know. But yeah, so we teach our children how to become less self-aware. Not because
Mm-hmm.
we mean to, it's quite accidental, right? But how to be more concerned with conforming or not making waves, or just that what you need to do to be acceptable in society. And while that is very, very important, would that there were
Mm-hmm.
some perfect parent. None of us are perfect. We're going to make
Yeah.
mistakes, right? But we get to travel back to ourselves, right? As we become
Yeah.
more conscious, we get to know that the things that we're focusing on externally have not and cannot bring us the happiness that we seek. Not the
Yeah.
cars, not the income, not the career, not the significant other, not the clothes or the shoes. Goodness gracious, we have tried. But those
Yes.
things do not bring happiness. And so here we are. At some point, we turn back and we say, oh my goodness, I have been carrying my happiness around with me all this time. It's inside
Mm-hmm.
this package I call a body, and I don't know how to unwrap this gift. I don't know how
Right.
to unlock this. And it's not even locked. I tell you, it's just tied together with a pretty little bow. But we don't know how to untie that bow because it takes some practice. It takes some self love, right? some self-tolerance, right? We don't
Mm-hmm.
even, just to tolerate ourselves sometimes. We can't even do that, right? We're not even that gracious
Yes.
with us. But it's a stepwise approach, and we have to be gentle with ourselves. But I think self-awareness, just like Socrates says, is the foundation for wisdom, and wisdom is the foundation for the happiness that we all seek.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm glad you said that about the tolerance because that was actually going to be my next question about when we're thinking about self-awareness. That's a big word and it's also a big thing to cultivate within yourself and requires a lot of other little things and a lot of other steps. And I think even in your book, there's the idea of stepping stones. So for me, in my journey, I'll just say here what happened for me, and then you can add on anything here that you feel like is appropriate. But like I did have to have a lot of internal compassion because there were things that I didn't want to accept about myself that I needed to be able to see clearly and with love and compassion in order to cultivate more self-awareness. I also had to be able to be more tolerant of the world around me to cultivate additional self-awareness. And then I had to be able to apply that self-awareness um, what I would say is like judiciously, because sometimes people aren't ready to receive the clarity of a situation and things like that. So for you, thinking about like what else is somebody cultivating when they're trying to grow their self-awareness? What else do they need? What other tools are they looking for? And what clues can we point them to?
Yeah, I love what you said about, it being a stepwise approach because everything in life is, eat an elephant one bite at a time. And the beautiful thing about
Yes, people want to
right,
do that all the time.
right, they want to gobble the whole thing down, right? But it's to be gentle with ourselves. I love that you brought that up, stepping stones. And I tell everyone that it's not linear. I wish it were linear. I
I
wish
know.
it
Wouldn't that
was,
be so nice and easy?
I tell people I have practiced in the healthcare field for over 30 years, and I use a linear part of my brain to do that. And I say, oh gosh, I just wish that this journey into self was linear, but it isn't. And that's what makes it so magical and so beautiful because these steps come in any order that you want them. But the first thing I tell people is to become curious,
Hmm.
right? Just be get that curiosity like you had when you were a kid. If you ever spend time around kids, they ask 1,000 questions, and you're like, at
Yes.
some point, you're like, it just is, okay, it just is. but
You're like
become
the
that
answer
way.
machine has ran out of answers.
What? It just is, right? But, we're laughing about it, but we need to become that way. Children are teaching us, right? Become curious, just curious about you. Become curious
Yes.
about the world around you. Just become curious without judgment, without shame, without guilt, without condemnation. And you hit on something when you
Hmm.
said that you had to become tolerant of the world around you. Now, when I first started off on this journey, I was in my teens. I was on my way to pharmacy school. So I was 17 years old. And so many, many years later. But when I first started out, I thought that I had to really learn to love and forgive me first before I could love and forgive anybody else. And that was,
Hmm.
oh my gosh, learning to love and forgive yourself is really, really challenging because once you peel back all the layers, you realize that you cannot lie to you. Like the
Hmm.
you that's the watcher is like,
Yes.
okay, no,
Hmm.
that's not it. One more time, please. Right? And so then we give up. We give up. We be like, oh, forget it. I don't want to face that part of me. But to become a forgiving of everything, and I want to take a quick second to tell you how serious I am about this. I happened to spend some time with a griot by the name of Mary Carter Smith, wonderful woman before she passed, and she was really old when I met her. And she told me a story that I never forgot. And I didn't know at the time when she told me that I was going to need
Hmm.
that on my journey. But she told me a story about forgiveness that I love sharing with people, how important
Okay.
forgiveness is in your journey to self awareness. Is that learning to forgive even those things that you think are very unforgivable, right?
Mm.
Just by feeling, you can just feel the humanness of a person. Maybe you can't relate to the crime or to the incident, but her only child, her child, adult child, a man at the time, was murdered by his girlfriend. She also had no other living relatives, just her and her son.
Mm.
And
Wow.
she harbored, you can imagine, so much pain and unforgiveness in her heart. and the pain of the loss of her son just got heavier and heavier year after year until one day she had this idea that she was going to go to the prison and she was going to visit the woman that killed her son. And the
Mm,
relief that she felt after that, she then became a regular visitor. That woman, the murderer of her son, became almost like a daughter to her.
wow.
Her love and her care for that individual changed her whole journey
Hmm.
for, and allowed her to rest within herself, to become more self aware. So, when I say become the forgiver of everything, I really do mean that. It is a practice, but when you can look at everyone as needing something from you, and that something is love.
Hmm.
So, that that behavior, whatever it is, however annoying it is, because we know we get annoyed, however ridiculous it is, however heinous it seems, is a cry for love. Not for you to
Hmm.
you don't have to reach out and do anything. Just extend love from your heart to their heart. Say,
Hmm.
I forgive you. I feel that you need love. Because a person who needs love, who didn't need love, couldn't behave in that way. A person who felt fulfilled couldn't behave in that way. So I always tell people to start with that. Start with doing just what you said, becoming tolerant of the
Hmm.
world around you, the person who runs the red light, the person who's talking in the movie theater, just becoming tolerant. Just
Yeah.
becoming tolerant. And that will allow you to become, believe it or not, here's the gift. Because every time we give, we receive. What we receive from that is that our walls within us start to subside and we become more tolerant of ourselves.
Hmm.
We start patting ourselves on the back. Oh, that's okay. I understand, right? Not
Yeah.
making excuses because we haven't asked for an answer. We haven't asked you a
Hmm.
question. We just tell you, isn't it beautiful for someone to come to you on a day when you've just been totally horrible in your worst and say, it's okay, I understand.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
That,
interesting with the tolerance begets more tolerance and it sort of filters out. And I think with the forgiveness piece that you're saying there, that's so integral with self when you tie it into the self-awareness and even the and how we are dishonest with ourselves and the world around us, is the more self-awareness we cultivate and tolerance, the harder it is for us to lie to ourselves and to other people and holding on to the lies and the stories of what people have done to us that weigh us down. And so, by its own nature, you have to drop those things on that journey. So I love that you said all of that. I wondered if you could tell us, as another layer, how we trick ourselves into thinking we're more self-aware than we are. I think in your pitch that I read, you said something to the effect that only about 10 to 15% of us are actually truly meet the criteria for self-awareness. And I know, like, when I first got my first taste of what I would consider adult self awareness, where there was true objectivity without judgment, I was like, I'm so good right now. Like, I'm going to look at the world real close to crystal clear. But then that turned into something egoic, right? So how do we trick ourselves into thinking we have true self awareness, and how can we catch ourselves and sort of ground ourselves back down?
yeah, so I think that's an interesting question too, because and what I like to look at is that instead of like looking for what we're doing wrong, right? There is this we have in our society. It's like, aha, I got you. You're an imposter, right? And there's a lot of that imposter syndrome that holds us back, right? So I like to approach life from what am I doing well? Right? What am I
Hmm.
doing well? Right. And then start asking questions, always back to questions. So one of the things that we do a lot of times is we stop short of something, right? We stop short of it. And what I mean by that is that we start to become self-aware and we become, I'm above all that, right? That the self-awareness that
Right.
puts us above, and what we become above is our own feelings, right? I no longer feel jealousy. Well, that's a denial because that's we all feel jealous, we all feel slighted, and we all. So when we stop acknowledging what we're actually feeling in the moment, I think that's like a false self awareness because we've replaced it with. And I talk a lot about happiness. We may get into that today. I really am a big proponent. If you go to my webpage, it talks about how to become the happiest person that you know. So I talk a
Mhm.
lot about happiness, but there is this pseudo happiness where we feel like we can feel no other emotions, and we equate that to being our self awareness. That I am so enlightened that I am above these emotions. I no longer feel this, right? Well, that
Mhm.
stamping down and that suppression, I can tell you from personal self experience. I told you I've been at this for a long time. That head in the sand, sort of, I will not look at that, only erupts
It only gets you
eventually,
so far. Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
It erupts eventually. I remember telling my mom at one point in my life, I have no more pockets within myself to stuff things, right? Within my being,
Wow.
there are no more pockets. Right? There was a pocket for
Wow.
this pain. There was a pocket for that disappointment. There was a pocket for this, and there was always a smile, and there was a pocket. And I said, Mom, there are no more pockets. I am out of pockets, right? And that's when I realized that that wasn't self awareness. That was the discovery of empty spaces within myself that I could stuff stuff in. I didn't want that. Right now, I had to go and, dig all that stuff and plow through that and become aware. So, what I teach people is this: stay in this moment with questions. Whatever you are feeling in this moment, your emotions are your ticket to the present moment. The present
Mhm.
moment is where your true power is for self awareness. What you are feeling, what I am feeling in this moment is important. It's not to
Yeah.
be stuffed and cast aside. It is just to be watched. You don't even have to follow it. There's something that Eckhart Tolle said in one of his books that I read years ago. He said, think of our thoughts and our emotions like clouds in the sky, right? And they'll
Mhm.
just come. And if we don't engage them, they'll just float on by, right? But we are aware of them. We just watch them. It's like, oh, isn't that something? There's sadness. I wonder what brought that
Yeah.
on, right? Today I was in the middle of doing something. I had this surge of like being overwhelmed, and I just felt, oh my gosh, I got to get out of here, right? And I just watched it. I
Mhm.
said, oh, I wonder where that came from. And I realized, oh, the pitch of that voice right there, it hit something in me. Oh, okay.
Mm.
That's interesting. Right. So just in this moment, I think to avoid pseudo self-awareness, right? Um,
Mhm.
avoid denying the emotion that you are feeling right now. I'm not saying go into it and spend all your time fixating on it. I'm saying acknowledge it. Acknowledge
Yeah.
it. And you can, yeah. And one of the best ways, easiest, people ask me this question all the time, so I'll answer it. People say, well, how do I acknowledge my emotions without getting involved in it? Right? Because
Right.
that's challenging,
That's a
right?
big one, yeah.
Yeah. So how do you do that, right? And I'll just use my example from today in the office, and I say it really, really nice, but really it was like this sense of just anger, just boom. I'm like, I am just so overwhelmed. I am so angry in this moment, right?
Mhm.
And so what I did in that moment was to ask myself, well, what are you angry about? I said, first of all, I'm too hot. So I just, get myself, take the suit jacket off. Okay, I'm too hot. Okay. And then, are you still angry? Yes, I'm still angry. And this is me talking to myself. Now I'm doing it in my head because I'm in
Mhm.
an office, but sometimes if I'm in my car, I do it out loud because we'll talk about this shining the light of awareness, but that's what questions do. They turn the
Mhm.
light on that emotion. And so I don't need to go deeper into that emotion. As I say, what I'm doing is peeling away layers and say, oh, I was too hot. Oh, it was the way that person came in at that high volume. Well, you've taken off the jacket. Can you, and I just started asking myself, do you feel the breeze on your shoulders? I do, right?
Mhm.
Has the yelling stopped? It has, right? And then right, you start, I'm still in the present moment, right?
Yeah. And just
If we can
befriending
do that,
yourself in that moment, right?
I
Mhm.
love it. I call that self-parenting, right? You learn how to parent yourself. So any of you who've
Mhm.
ever spent any time around little people, right? You're trying to, it's like 20 questions trying to figure out what's wrong when they're hollering and screaming, right? Do they need to be changed? Do you need a snack? Right? Right. Is it too noisy in here? Do you need a nap? Right? You do that stuff with yourself and you're still in the present moment. We're no longer dealing with the fact that I'm getting angrier and angrier by the minute because guess what? I'm not.
Mhm.
I am now becoming curious. I'm just becoming curious. Do you need to take your jacket off? Yes. Where's the sound? Oh, it's gone, right? And I'm in this moment, I'm becoming self-aware. And this is one of the easiest way into self is through our emotions. But
Yeah.
learning to utilize our emotions and not letting our emotions abuse us.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. And I do want to talk about the happiness thing, so we can pivot that. I wanted to talk about it in terms of your book, which I have not read, but you have a book called Freedom is Your Birthright. And I imagine these are either happiness becomes the byproduct or it's part of the journey. I would like for you to tell us what that is. But I wondered if you could tell the audience what this book is about, and then talk about what freedom means to you. And it's a big buzzword too right now, as we
Yeah.
are starting to liberate as a society, and as we're starting to recognize that we require more freedom, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. That I think that can take on the tone of a lot of different things. But why don't you just start by telling us what the book is about, and then let's deep dive into freedom and happiness and how those two things are related.
Yeah, of course. So I wrote that book. It was intentional when I actually wrote it, but I never set out to write a book. Just have to tell you a little bit about what was going on in my life when I wrote that
Okay,
book.
yeah.
I tell people I was having the trifecta of pain. I had
Oh,
the beginning of, I've been married for 20 years at that time, and my marriage was had revealed a huge crack in it that would not be it was shattering. So something
okay.
shatters, you can't super glue it together. But that year was the year that that discovery was coming about, and so it was also the year that I lost my job, and also the year that I got diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. So all in that same
Wow.
year, and so the sickness had gotten to the point where I couldn't really stand up just to cook a meal. I out of breath, legs weren't working. I'd lie down on the kitchen floor, get up, stir the pot. And so it's actually not a bad story. It's a beautiful story. But I'm lying down in between cooking my kids' meal on the kitchen floor. I was like, oh, it's so cool down here. And I asked myself a question as panic almost started to set in because here you are, your marriage is over. Well, it hadn't officially ended, but it was on the road.
It was on its
And
way, yeah.
yeah, and you lost your job, and so and you're not feeling well, and panic was starting to set in as I lie down on that cold night with that floor. I still can remember how good it felt on that day because the kitchen was hot, the
Mm,
floor was cool, and as the panic was setting in, I asked myself, I said, "Are you happy?" I had said, "Yeah, I'm happy. I'm not ha happy, but I'm happy, right?"
mhm,
And it stopped the panic just like that. And
mm,
why would you be happy? So my mind started to remind me, hey, there are reasons for you to be unhappy,
mhm,
right? Your marriage is over, your health is bad, and you've lost your job. Are you crazy? I said, no, I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. I said, my happiness is not predicated on those things. I know it's not the end of me.
mm.
Right? And as I was lying there, got myself up, got up, and continued making my dinner, I realized that I wanted to give that to someone. That I knew that someone other than me in that exact moment
Yeah,
felt
that
like
was
their
really
world
powerful.
was falling apart. Right? Yeah. And I
Mhm.
thought, no, no, no. Your world isn't falling apart. Things are detaching. They are, right? And you will be fine. You will move to a higher level. And so that is what freedom is. Freedom is the there's something I'm going to date myself. Dragnet from years and years ago. It used to be a show on television. And one of the
Yeah.
lines they used to say in that show was, just the facts, ma'am. Only the facts. And so those were the facts of my life right there. Those were the
Mhm.
facts. Now, here's where the freedom comes to play. I get to give meaning to the facts. That's it.
Yes.
That's where the power is. Stuff
Yes.
happens, right? Stuff happens. What does it mean? And that was what the
Mm.
whole intention behind freedom is your birthright is for you to understand, for me to reinforce to myself is that I am free to give meaning to everything. I may not
Yeah.
get to choose the things that show up. Very often we don't, but we get to choose the meaning that those things have. Is a divorce the end of your life or a beginning of a wonderful new journey, right? Is the
Yeah.
loss of that job the end of your financial security or the beginning of a new journey? Is this health issue, the body that you depend on, is this going to be
Mhm.
the end of you? Or will this be a story that you tell from stage after stage after stage to encourage people around the world? I decided, well,
Mhm.
I'm picking the right hand on all those things, right? But I had to decide that. And so I used the book, a tiny, tiny book, less than 100 pages, because I really wanted people to really get in there and really find themselves in those stories and realize that
Yeah.
freedom is not free. No one hands you freedom and you just run away with it. It will take sacrifice. There will be things that we're currently doing that we will have to decide in and of ourselves that that is no longer profitable for me. Is it allowable?
Mhm.
Absolutely. You're grown, you can do whatever you want to. But is it taking you where you want to go? Where do you want to be? And how is that perspective helping you get there? How are those habits helping you get there? So freedom is to say, you know what? Yeah, this is going to take some work. It may even sound
Mhm.
crazy. I don't know if I even believe all this stuff, but I know I don't like feeling like that. So I'm going to
Well, and
try
it's
something new.
yeah, and it's interesting with I think we're so conditioned in our culture, and I do think it's because of our Abrahamic roots of the black and white, is that when early on, if you're having not having cultivated self awareness or gone on this alchemical journey where you're turning like your pain into purpose and transmuting your wounds into wisdom, but there's this idea of like the black and white, just the binary always. So like if something happens to you, it's bad. If something, really positive happens, that's all good. And sometimes living in that binary doesn't allow us to cultivate that meaning making that can point to something even more fruitful in the end. And so I love that you said that, because I think it's really important to recognize that there is freedom in being able to meaning make, and it is our birthright to do that. I mean, otherwise, like, sometimes this existence could get really heavy.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. And I love what you're saying because things happen. You said, what is good and what is bad. So we started off this conversation by talking about religion, right? And so there's
Hmm.
a part in the Bible where, someone comes up to Jesus and says, "Good master." Say, "Oh, whoa, whoa. Why do you call me
Hmm.
good?" Right. And I
Hmm.
always thought that was significant. I remember spending hearing that in a Pentecostal church and then hearing it in a New Thought church, right?
Hmm.
And that saying, "Why do you call me good?" What is good? Right?
Yes.
What is that? Right? And so if you say that something is good, does that mean something is bad? It's just an is. It's you give it the meaning.
Yes. Yes.
You get to give it that's why you're the creator. You are the
Hmm.
creator of this journey. Things are gonna happen, but you don't know, I think back and I said, oh, my wedding was the happiest day of my life, right? It
Hmm.
opened up a new journey for me. Right? People
Yeah.
say, oh, divorce was the worst day of my life. Well, if you
No,
want it
don't
to be,
tempt fate. It it definitely
right?
could not
No,
be.
right, right. You want it to be, but understand that that's your choice. That is your
Yeah.
choice. Something has happened. I have this joke that I use in healthcare all the time. I run departments and I tell people, I said, so today we come in here and healthcare, if you're a healthcare worker, you'll probably get this. I say, you come in here and everything looks like it's just going your way. And
Hmm.
I'm a lover of Greek mythology. I think of these, the gods sitting up in Olympus and they say, okay, well, you're handling that, but can you take this? And then there's a
Yeah.
thunderbolt from somewhere, right? And so if we
Yeah.
look at life and think we're on a stage. This is our stage, right?
Hmm.
And maybe the ultimate goal here is can I stay focused in the midst of the distractions? Can I stay focused? Can I pick up whatever falls in front of me and says, I'm going to use this to get me to where I want to be? Or will
Hmm.
I get so distracted that everything that falls in front of me becomes a stumbling block, a stumbling stone, and I lose my way?
Yeah.
The idea is to approach life, in my humble opinion, as Florence Scofield Shinn said, that like the game of life and how to play it. That
Hmm.
everything here becomes a piece on a board, on a monopoly board, or whatever you like to play. This is a piece that showed up. What will I do with it?
Yeah.
Will this be the end of the game, or can I use this some kind of way to go ahead and create the life that I want to create? And my perspective is that we are here You use the word transmutation. I love alchemy, the idea of taking something
Me
and
too.
making something else with it, right? We do
Mm-hmm.
it all of the time. Each and every one of us does it all of the time. If you think about how worry happens, we hear a story about the stock market, about we'll talk about COVID. We hear a story and we take those words and we
Mm-hmm.
transmute it into worry in our own life. We could take those
Yes.
same words, they're just words, right? We could take
Mm-hmm.
those same words and give them totally different meaning and
Yep.
thereby change our focus. When we change our focus, we automatically change the compass in our life, that internal compass that points us in the direction that we want to go. So we change the
Mm-hmm.
focus, we start on a different journey. But this takes teaching. It takes teaching, and how we get there is through self awareness. How do we get through to self awareness? By practicing staying in the present moment through paying attention to those emotions. The easiest way I've tried a lot too. I've tried a lot. I've been on this journey for a long time, but you know, what right where I am right now today is my gateway into me. Not where I was
Mm-hmm.
5 minutes ago, not where I hope to be tomorrow. Right where I am right now. I don't need to go
Yeah.
back, and I can't go back and physically change the past. I can make peace with the past. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you will eventually get there, but right now, if you're finding that, gosh, I'm not where I want to be, not just physically, externally, but internally. I don't have this sense of overall well being, which is yours and mine's to have. If that doesn't
Yes.
describe your current state, no matter what's going on externally, then I invite you to pay attention to those emotions and start asking questions to that right now to bring yourself into more self awareness.
Yeah, and I think I want to touch on the happiness piece a little bit before we wrap up, but I think it's also good to cultivate all of this because life will continue to bring us things to work with. And so we it's in our best interest to learn how to receive the good, the bad, the ugly. Not that I want to ascribe any of those things to our life situations, but being able to cultivate that groundedness, that present moment awareness, so that whatever comes our way, that inner stillness, I think that Eckhart points to all the time, that allows us a heightened ability to transmute what's there, create some meaning, and then also then walk our own human brothers and sisters along that same journey if they need us. I think that is really the point here, that we're trying to get us all to, because we will continue to interact with not wonderful situations and people and experiences. So the more we can cultivate that internally and really stay firm in ourselves, just really makes the biggest difference. So when we're thinking about the happiness piece, I used to think that and I was conditioned, just like society does to everyone, that the external creates the happiness. And then I went on this journey and I realized, well, first, I really needed to, I think, ground myself in a layer of contentment. That was one of the big things, was just building this base layer of contentment and then finding joy and happiness outside of those things and the transientness of it. But for you, what does happiness, cultivating happiness, look like? And how are you helping people become happier on a regular basis?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So for me, happiness is quite simply this. It is an alignment between my thoughts and my feelings, right? Because that's where we're tortured, right? You think one thing and you feel. I said the body doesn't lie. The body is, inside, it tells you, okay, I feel this in my gut, but your mind is
Right.
that's a whole hour. It is so
It's so
creative. It
intelligent.
is,
Yeah.
right. Yeah. So it is designed for one reason and one reason only, is to win, right?
Mm,
And it gets even lost in what it's trying to win, right? So it will win
yes.
at the cost of you. It will win. So let's hope we can get into that. But so alignment between your thoughts and your feelings, right? To be aligned there, to know, okay, I am thinking the thoughts that are aligning with what's making me happy. I am pursuing the things with my mind, with my activities, in alignment with what makes me feel good. right? In our adult
Mm-hmm.
self, right? So being in that place, and again, how do we get there? We get there through self-awareness, right? That's how we
Mm-hmm.
get to this place of happiness, because oftentimes we don't even know what makes us happy. Right. We pursue, as you said, external things, thinking if I live in the right neighborhood, if I drive the right car, if I get the right degree or marry the right person, right? I'm going to be happy. And we find that it's transient. We're happy for a little while, and then there's another, another designer comes on the scene. You got to have that. And we realize those things are nice to have. But this sense of well-being, this sense of being purposeful and aligned, in a season where things just seem to be going your way, and in a season when they don't seem to be going your way, to realize, oh, this is part of the journey too. It
Mm-hmm.
hurts. I would rather that not happen. I'll go
Yeah.
back to my story from 2015, what I call my trifecta of pain, right? I would rather those things not happen and they don't
Mm-hmm.
feel good. But I am aware somewhere within myself where no human hand can touch. Yeah, I am happy.
Mm.
I do know that I will find my way back on course, because within me my happiness wasn't predicated on the marriage, on the job, or
Right.
even the body. I would like this body to last and continue to work and be functional to the end of the journey. But my happiness is not predicated on it. Right? We have to read stories of people who've done phenomenal things. They don't have the use of all the things that I have in a body. I started reading those stories and say, oh my God. You got to be kidding me. So that alignment, and I teach my clients this, that to become happy for yourself, you divorce yourself from the goals and the rules and the thoughts that other people, well-meaning people, have for you. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And you just have to decide, who are you? Who do you have for you? What is the life that you have for you?
Mm-hmm.
And how can you feel that? How can you feel your way into that person when you're doing the activities that make you super, super happy, or when you engage in the activities that make you cry? How can you still feel into that person?
Yeah.
That's happiness.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, we'll leave it there. I want to touch in with you about how people can connect with you, anything you have going on. If somebody's listening to this and they want to work with you, how do they do that?
Right. So you can connect with me on all social media under Dr. Dravon James. That's my name on social media. My website is drdravonjames.com, and there is a contact me button there. I do want to say this to everyone too. Doing this journey alone, you could, but you
Yeah.
will. I would encourage you. I would highly encourage you. If not me, then someone you will get to partner with you on this journey, because there will be what I call dark nights of the soul, when you are tempted to go back, and it doesn't matter, you've existed 40, 50, 60, 20 years, it doesn't matter how many years, without self-awareness. You'll convince yourself that you don't need it, but you
Yeah.
are leaving so much on the table if you walk away. Get a team that supports you, that you can call and
Mm-hmm.
you can rant with, and they can help you gently get back on track, right? Without shame, guilt, or condemnation. So if not me, you can definitely reach me at drdravonjames.com. Then someone that you can trust. Work with someone.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Well, and I always like to end in gratitude and check in with my guest about what three things they're really steeping in this week or this year, about something they're really grateful for.
Oh, you asked the right woman that question. I write a gratitude card every morning. So this morning, I gotta tell you what, I write three things exactly every morning that I'm grateful for that haven't happened yet. One was this interview. I'm grateful that
Oh,
I know our time together today will have touched someone in some way positive in their life. A second thing that I am grateful for is the ability to forgive. Every day I wake up, say that. Right?
yeah.
Because if I am forgiving, that means I am giving love and I am receiving love. And then thirdly, I'm grateful for the opportunity to start all over again.
I love those. Those are beautiful. Those are beautiful and they're big. They're not little either.
Yeah. Oh, and that's stuff that I gotta do every day. I gotta forgive, and I gotta say to myself, all right, I'm starting all over again. Reset.
Yeah. Reset. Yeah. Yeah, you reset until, until all of the residual gunk is gone.
Yep.
And like you said in the beginning, it's not linear and it's not meant to be linear. If it was, it'd be too easy and then, we'd be living pretty boring lives.
Right, right. Yeah, you're so right. So yeah, that's one thing I want to leave everybody with is reset all day long. Stop. Say, oh my
Hmm.
gosh, was I doing that? Yeah, no, reset.
Yeah, stop beating yourself up. Be gentle with yourself. Like
Yeah,
Dr. Dravon James said, internal gentleness is the key to almost everything.
yeah,
Yeah, well, I
yeah.
really had a great time with you. I did want to mention too to anyone who probably recognizes you. I think you were on The Wire, right?
Yes. I'm an actress,
It's not,
so
you're an actress as well. I didn't want to skip over that. And obviously
yeah,
they can see how beautiful you are inside and
very,
out.
very kind.
I just wanted to, in case people were like, hey, she looks familiar. Where's she from? I think I know her. What was your time
Oh,
like on The Wire here as we're wrapping up?
oh, I loved it. HBO
Yeah.
is the best, right? Yeah, I loved it. So I'm still acting. I'll
Yeah, I
be
was
in
going to ask,
the
are you doing some
yep.
more things?
Yep, I'm in a show on Tubi television right now called Black Therapy, and a couple other
Ooh,
projects that I have that I'm working on. A stage play called Serenity House. So I'm in a few things and traveling this weekend to check out some other things. So yeah, but
beautiful. I mean, you're
I
you're
love
you're all the
yeah,
things.
yeah. And everybody is too. I teach that no good thing should be withheld from you. Self-awareness is the
Yeah.
key.
Okay, well, we're gonna have to leave it there. That's too beautiful. I don't want to pick anything else up. Thank you so much for coming to the show, and I know that your work is so integral, and it's helping elevate the consciousness of humanity. It's liberating people. It's giving people their peace back and their happiness, and there's nothing more important that we can do. There's no higher calling than what you're doing, and I really appreciate that you're contributing to the overall wellness of our shared humanity here.
Oh, thank you, and thank you for the work that you're doing and the opportunity to be on your show.
This podcast was written, directed, and produced by me, your host, Krista Xiomara, in alignment with LightCasting. Music curated and created by Mr. Pixie. You can find I'm Awake Now What on all social media channels by searching IANW Podcast. Head over to your favorite podcast app and subscribe, download, rate, and review. Come back every Sunday to partake in a new and enlightening conversation. May you be filled with love and light until we meet again.